つも頑張る君の横顔ずっと見てても気づかないよね夢の中なら二人の距離縮められるのにな神様お願い二人だけのドリームタイムくださいお気に入りのサテンライで今夜もおやすみFuwa Fuwa time Fuwa Fuwa time Fuwa Fuwa time ふとした静かに今日もハートと気づきさりげない顔は頼りしすぎてオーバーヒートいつか目にした君の間近を瞳閉じても浮かんでくるよ夢でいいから二人だけのついてたる星の神様どうして好きになるほど鳥もないことないよその時の熊ちがしたし今夜は大丈夫かな
The first time that I ever attended Otakon was in 2008 for my 17th birthday, and it was amazing. It was probably the best experience of my life up until that point. I got to see Jam Project live on my birthday perform what had been for 5 years my favorite anime opening of all time, The Soul Taker. The next night I got to sing that song in karaoke. I met all these great Japanese guests, attended all these panels, had my mind blown by everything I saw. The Baltimore Convention Center was one of the biggest buildings I'd ever been in, and it was so just fascinating to look at. I spent so much time just wandering the hallways, like taking it all in and imprinting it all into my memory, to the point that by the next year, I already knew my way around, because I had just so memorized this place out of just being such a fan of it, you know? I was blown away by every cosplay I saw. So much cosplay, so much crazy cosplay. People dressed as characters that I thought I was the only person who knew, you know? It was mind-shattering to attend such a huge convention and see so much stuff. The dealer's room, the first time I went in there, I literally could not see the other end from the entrance. I couldn't believe it. It's literally big enough that you could land an airplane in there. And I was just so blown away by the size of this place and spent hours wandering around, completely losing my sense of direction. I remember the first time I was in there, I just couldn't figure out where I was for a lot of the time. Just looking at all this anime stuff. That was something that I was like, you know, of course I have to go here every year, because it was unbelievably amazing. So we went the next year, and that first year it was me, my cousin Boyd, my friend Donson, and we roomed with, and I think Victor was there too, and we roomed with some of my online friends, a guy named Bakaraptor, who is still an active anime blogger, and a guy called Pats, who I still see at Otakon every year. And we all roomed together in Bakaraptor's room. It was in a hotel that was like a drive away from the convention, so we basically drove into town and drove back, you know, drove in each morning, drove back each night. And I remember that on Thursday night, I was so excited for the con, I couldn't sleep. So I just went out of the I left the hotel at like 3 in the morning and just wandered around the hotel. And I memorized that whole hotel as well. I could tell you, if I went there today, I could still remember it all, which I have. I've been back to that same one over the years. You know, just everything was so important to me at the time. So we went the next year again. This time we got a hotel that was actually really close to the convention. We once again roomed with Pats, pretty much the same team. I think Shade might have been with us that year, or maybe he didn't come till the next one. But, you know, we went up there again, and once again we had a pretty great time. It wasn't as great as the year before, because the year before had been, you know, unbelievable. You were never going to top Jam Project playing Soul Taker on my birthday, but it was still a great time, you know. Then we went in 2010, and it was a little less memorable. And then we went in 2011, and it was even less memorable. And there was definitely this sense of demystification and what's that word to use for something just being less and less impressive the more you look at it, you know? I mean, by 2011, there was nothing new to see about the convention center itself. I'd been there 4 times. I knew my way around, you know? It was a place I was used to being. I knew Baltimore pretty well. I knew, you know, cosplay was no longer surprising or interesting because I've seen it all, you know? At this point, nothing can surprise me that's going on in this convention. And we didn't go in 2012 or 2013, which is particularly ironic because those are the years that they probably had some of the best guests. Yoko Kanno played live in 2013. Would have liked to see that. But that was a span of time when I was not as into anime, so I just didn't go. And then in 2013, that was also when I got big into the pony stuff, and they started holding BronyCon in the same convention center. So I went to that. And there, I got to experience being, like, it was a totally different experience because I wasn't there for the guests. I was there to essentially be a guest. I had a panel. I was a famous guy. I was signing autographs left and right the whole time I was there and having my picture taken with people. You know, I got to see it from, like, the other side of the coin as the person who people are there to see. And so that happened 3 years in a row. I went to 3 different BronyCons and, as of 2014, started going to Otakon and BronyCon both in the same year, which is crazy because they're like a week apart in the same place. So I've been to this convention center, you know, 10 times now? And 9 times? Probably 9 times now. I've been to a lot of the same hotels multiple times. I've been to the area so much that I know it like the back of my hand. You know, I can tell you where to go to eat if you're there. I can tell you, you know, what's the quickest routes to get around kind of thing. You know, I've been there a million times. And as of last year, I really felt like I'm kind of done with Otakon. Because last year, there was pretty much just, like one guest I was even interested in. Because the thing about Otakon is that it's been shrinking. And not only has it been shrinking in the number of people who are going, but also in just what they've been able to get for the con. And in the meantime, see, back in 2008, there was Otakon on the East Coast and Anime Expo on the West Coast. And they were about, like, neck and neck in size. That is no longer even remotely true. Anime Expo is up to like 100,000 people a year. Otakon has less than 30,000 people a year. So Anime Expo is way huger. And every year the guest list for Anime Expo is mind-blowingly good. They've always got like a shit ton of Japanese guests, shit tons of industry stuff, all kinds of great, amazing shit happening there. Great musical guests. And Otakon has had nothing in the last couple years. Last year we just had Pakuromi, and that was like the only guest I was excited about. And Masao Maruyama, but he comes every year, except this year when he couldn't make it, which was particularly sad, because I really want to see him again. But, yeah, so, like, this year, all we really had was the PA Works guys. And I'm glad I got to see them. It was cool, you know. I'm glad I got to see the president of PA Works, who is, in many ways, the heart and soul of how Shirobako happened and what it was about. So, you know, it's nice to meet them. And they seemed like cool guys. But, like, you know, I would not have gone to this convention if not for, one, that this convention is the last one they're doing in Baltimore. And so for me, it was more about seeing it for the last time. You know, I don't do BronyCon anymore, and Otakon's moving, so there's a good chance I'll never see the Baltimore Convention Center again. And somewhere that was that important to me, you know, at a time, it's like, I gotta see it one last time. And, you know, see Baltimore one last time. And do some of the things that I never got to do before, like eat at more of the expensive restaurants, because I had money now. And it's funny, though, I came to this Otakon with the biggest budget I've ever come to one with, and I probably spent the least money. Because in the past, I usually was going, like the first couple years, it was, like, birthday money from my dad that he'd given me, you know, that I blew through all of. And then, like, this last couple years it's just been my money, and like this year I could have bought anything I wanted, and there was just nothing I wanted. Because in comparison to those first couple years where the dealer's room was so mind-blowing, and it was like all these art books and all these figures that are expensive and I want them, and then over time I came to realize that those, I don't really care about owning those that much. You know, my figures, eventually those become old shows that I used to be into, you know, that I don't maybe care about as much. Or the art books are kind of hard to actually display, you know, it's like those things aren't really worth the money. They're not really worth owning. And so, you know, I usually now go for like posters and t-shirts and stuff that are easy to have on display or have like an immediate purpose. And what is popular in anime in the US is rarely what I'm into. So, like, I'm going around, like, this year there's all this Love Live shit everywhere. Some shows that are still surviving. Ore no Imoto still has a million things everywhere. Monogatari still has stuff everywhere, and I own too much of it, so I don't want to buy any more. Osomatsu-san and shit, and, like, all the big popular shonen stuff that's out there, and it's like, no, they don't have anything for me, you know. None of the shows that I've been excited about in the last 2 years have fucking toys or posters or anything relevant. So it's really hard for me to go out there and find something I want to own. So in spite of wandering around the dealer's room, which I, once again, know like the back of my hand, because it's the same places every year, set up in the same way, everywhere sells the same shit. Like, what you realize after a couple years is like, oh, it's all the same toys at every vendor. It's all the same DVDs at every vendor, you know. So, yeah, it looks huge and overwhelming, but there's not really that much going on. And, you know, just the level of, like, guests is so low that there's nothing really to get excited about. Like, this year, I fully intended to spend more time outside of the convention center than I did inside, just going around, eating at places, doing whatever. But even then, I ended up being so tired most of the time because it's so hard to catch sleep, you know, in between all the traveling and stuff. And the fact that it was so hot, it was like 100 fucking degrees every day. And I also realized that it takes a bit of a walk to actually get to all those restaurants. You know, there's nothing that's like right outside the convention center except Kona Grill. Most of it's like a bit of a hike. So, you know, it ended up being like the idea of leaving was not nearly as enticing as I thought it would be. It was not as much fun to go out to different restaurants because it was like, oh, I gotta walk half a mile in 100-degree weather and then walk back as soon as I'm done eating. You know, it became a lot less of a worthy prospect. Though I'm glad I got to do so much walking and stuff because I was scared I was going to put on like 5 to 10 pounds just doing nothing but eating and drinking alcohol throughout the whole Otakon, and instead I ended up walking most of the time and barely drank any alcohol. Funnily enough, we got a hotel within walking distance of the convention center so that everybody would be able to leave and come back at their own volition. Like, we all, because every year we have to like have a bunch of people sitting around waiting for everyone else to be done, essentially. And, you know, some of us like to stay super late. And I thought, oh, we have like, we're close to the con, I'm gonna, like, stay out and drink till 2 a.m. every night. And I ended up being the guy who wanted to go to bed early every night. I was the one who went home at, like, 8 and went to bed, you know, edited my vlog and went to bed and, like, didn't stay out at all. So it's kind of funny. If there's one thing which did fascinate me more than anything at this year's Otakon, it was the realization that it has not changed at all. Other than in that there hasn't been as many great guests, but every year I see the same people in the same places. I recognize everybody at this convention, even though a lot of them don't recognize me because I always look so different every year. But I saw the same guys who live in the karaoke room, who were once again living in the karaoke room. The same panelists, Anime World Order, Charles Dunbar, the guys who do the Japanese food panels and stuff. All the same people are there. All the same familiar faces. And in some ways, it was fun to see that, particularly at the last con, to be like, you know, I get to see all these guys one last time before I leave. But at the same time, it was seeing all of them that made me realize exactly why this has to be the last one. Because it's just all the same stuff over and over again. And, you know, I'm ready to see something different. I can't really complain, because, like, I went there to have something to do for 3 days. You know, it was fun to go up to Baltimore, see it one last time. It wasn't like it was completely boring and like a shitty time. You know, I got to see all the sights, and it didn't really cost me anything, because while I did pay for Victor's badge, which you could just say was me finally giving him the money we make from Digi Bros, then I didn't have to pay for mine because I was press. You know, I had to throw down for the hotel and all the shit I bought there, and for gas, but wasn't that big a deal. You know, I was it was worth the expense to see it one last time and sort of say goodbye. And, you know, it never would have been as meaningful as it had been before. I can't say I'll miss it. Like, I miss the experience of having been there in 2008 and it being mind-blowing, you know. But I'm never going to get that again. And if I go to another anime convention, I'd rather... if I'm going to go to one, I'm going to see if I can fly to Anime Expo. I've never done it because it's just, you know, crushingly expensive to fly across country. But if I can afford it this year, I'm going to do it because... You know, Otacon's like one of the biggest, and even that is barely worth going to these days. And smaller cons are not at all worth going to. I've been to a couple, and they're miserable. So, you know, if it's not Anime Expo, then it's kind of or bust. And, you know, I'll miss the Baltimore Convention Center, but all those moments will be lost in Fuwa Fuwa time, like tears in rain. One last Kirito for the road, right there in the middle. See you later.